Well, hello class. As I mentioned, I think in my email, I wanted to send a follow-up video. I'm going to make this one a bit quick. I just want to go over a couple things. I looks like I have all of your papers. If for some reason I wasn't able to get both the PDF of your well-being assessment and your Word document of the actual assignment, I will let you know. I should have those back to you, given that I gave you some extra time. Hopefully maybe middle of next week if I can get things together. I've got 2 sections of this class, so grading 32 of those papers, and then I've got another actually 8 students in a different class I'm teaching, so 3 online classes this term, so it's a bit busy, but hopefully I can get those to you quickly. Okay, so hang tight on that. Let me say one thing on those papers, okay? And I'll actually say a number of things to kind of give you some insight into how my mind works when it comes to grading, specifically on this first assignment. Okay, so I was actually in a writing seminar Monday and Wednesday of this week, and one of the things that we were talking about was, one of our English faculty here on campus drew this, you can't see it, but this continuum. And on one side of the continuum, they wrote all grammar all the time, only grammar all the time, blah, 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 right? Only focus on grammar, spelling, style, and so forth, punctuation. On the other side, they wrote no grammar, never. And he says, he's an English prof, so he's making jokes. And that's actually not grammatically correct. No grammar, never. Should be no grammar, ever. But all that to say, there's this ongoing conversation. In fact, I saw him in the hallway this morning, and we were talking about, literally, that is the $64,000 question, is what's the focus to be on? And so one of the things that I will say, I think is important for you to know as we grade papers, as you get your papers back from me, if the paper is poorly written, I'm just not going to read it, okay? I'm going to give you a 0. I might give you a chance to get back to you, and please hear me. I don't typically give 0s for papers. There's usually lots of redeeming qualities in there. But I have written papers, or read papers that were written that were just atrocious, okay? And if I can't actually decipher the message of your paper, which does happen, if I can't decipher the message of your paper because it's so poorly written, which I don't anticipate will happen in graduate school, but crazier things have happened, then I'm just going to give it back to you. Okay, and I'll give you, 24 hours to do something to fix it up. But I can't read a paper. I can't spend time on a paper that's just so atrociously written. Again, this is not my expectation. This will happen. You're in grad school, so and many of you are advanced in your graduate education. But I want you to know that grammar is really important to me. It's very important to me. Okay. But I'm trying to figure out where do I kind of land on this continuum between no grammar, never, and all grammar, only grammar, all the time, because there has to be a bit of a balance between those two, polar opposite ends of the spectrum. So this first paper, this is really in many ways it's a paper. Did you do it? Okay. Did you respond to the assignment as it was assigned? Okay. So did you hit the different prompts? Did you respond to different questions? Did you actually submit the full assignment? Little things like, did you do a cover page? Did you put your name on all these? Whatever was assigned in the syllabus, did you do those things? Right. So and if so, and you responded well, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on grammar, punctuation, and so forth. I'll give you a little note at the end, but be brief, okay? But essentially, this first assignment is what I'm trying to help you do. And I was just talking to a student on the phone, and they were saying, I really enjoyed that book. And I hear that every single time I teach the class. I really enjoyed that book because it's very applicable, right? It's very personal. Like I just get it. It just makes sense. It's helpful. And as we're looking at even this week and some more of the research and statistics, when you look at the overall well-being index, if you will, organizations that have higher well-being, individually, those personnel, the human capital actually costs significantly less to the bottom line of the organization. So well-being is huge. So I hope you're finding this book to be valuable. I love the text. I think it's great. But I'm wanting to get it in our minds how important well-being is, okay? So and I want to give you some tangible tools. And so as you're writing your response, if you said, I don't find it valuable, okay? that's fine, but you have to then justify and explain why you don't find it valuable. If you do, again, it's the same idea, explain and justify why you do find it valuable. So there has to be actual explanation, not just, that was a great book. Well, okay, why was it a great book, right? So this is that ability to kind of to get to the higher level learning, even though this is a very personal book, but I'm asking you also to think about how could this potentially be used in what you know so far, this realm, this field of career development, okay? So when you get your next paper to me, which is your vocation and calling paper here due in a few, 4 or 5 weeks or so, 3-4 weeks, I guess, 4 weeks, I'm going to spend some more time on this kind of the actual written portion of that, okay? So you won't see a lot of, I'm not going to say red pen because we don't like red pen, but you're not going to see a lot of comments on this first one. The second one, I'm not going to give you a lot of comments on either. I'm going to give you some kind of highlight, overarching, kind of 30,000 foot feedback. But here's why. So I'm going to tell you a story. When I first started teaching this class, I remember I had this student. It was a great student. I really, really liked this student. They had great thoughts, but their paper, their first paper, was so horribly written. I got the content, but I literally spent, I think it was a 4 to 5 page paper. I literally spent 3 hours grading this paper because I spent too much time getting to kind of every technical aspect of the paper itself. So I was making notes here and stopping. And my wife looked at me and she said, "What are you doing?" And I said, I'm grading the paper. And she said, "You're taking way too long." And here's the reality. I've talked to a lot of colleagues. In that response, in my response that I gave, the feedback I gave, the comments and the margins on this paper that I gave to the student, it didn't actually help a whole lot in their overall quality. Now, I'll tell you another story. Because of that, I kind of reverted to the other side of things. So again, if we're on a spectrum, I gave so much feedback to where I didn't give as much feedback. And I had a student a couple of years ago, right, at the end of the semester, they said, "Great class, learned a lot, thanks so much. Just for the future, it would be helpful," and this is exactly how they said, "it would be helpful if you gave more feedback. So if you could just file that away for the future." I'm sorry, excuse me. So just file that away. And I wanted to respond and say, and I did say in kind, I did say, "Hey, if you wanted more feedback, all you had to do was ask for more feedback." Now, of course, my sinful nature wanted to say, "So why don't you just file that away for the future?" I didn't say that, okay? Didn't say that. But what I realized in thinking back to that experience is, even though in my mind I was giving less feedback because I knew that no one really paid attention to the feedback, I didn't actually articulate that, okay? So if ever you need more feedback, okay, and I'll give you thoughtful feedback, say, "Hey, great paper, really nice work, I like what you said here, I like the thesis of this, I liked how you articulated this," maybe a paragraph, maybe 2-3 sentences even, okay? If you would like more, please hear me. You are always welcome to ask for more. I can always give you more. But I've made it kind of a practice that I don't give just gobs of feedback because a lot of folks don't really care about gobs of feedback. Okay? And that's both fortunate and it's unfortunate because I think if I'm wanting to help you write better, which I do want to help you write better, my hope is that you will be a better writer because you're writing a lot on a regular basis, different forms, right? Free flow, all that. You'll be a better writer at the end of the semester than you were at the beginning of the semester. That's always the goal for any instructor. I want you to think better. I want you to write better. But if you would like me to give you more to elaborate, always please feel free to ask, "Hey, what do you mean by this? Could you elaborate more? How was my, technical aspects, all that," okay? So just make sure that you're following through with what the assignment actually asks for in the syllabus. And then if you have other questions, of course, let me know. Okay? So that's that. So know that when you get a paper back, I won't give you just all of this feedback because a lot of folks, and I was going to say most, and I think that's probably true, unfortunately, most folks don't really spend a lot of time on that feedback. Though, I will give enough so you know kind of where your strengths and weaknesses were, and if you need more, then of course, like I said, ask. Okay? So let me talk about something else with your response and then feedback. So you got my email. I hope I clarified as far as expectations for discussion forums. Your LipTac 321 response, as I mentioned, that is for you to write and me to read. okay? And that's it, okay? You don't engage in conversation with your classmates over that. Same thing with the case studies. Now, here's the thing on the case studies. And I've had to think about this. I didn't do case studies for a while, and then I talked to Vicki Ewing, our department chair, and she said, students in that program really like case studies. Why don't you think about doing case studies? And I said, okay, I'll do case studies. So I actually found a book written by Swanson and Fuhad, another career development class. It was a teaching by case studies type book. I don't use it because it wasn't the best overall book, but the case studies I thought were great. So I've borrowed those case studies and inserted them into the curriculum, and we use them. But here's the deal, and I think this is really important, okay? And one of the things here, in I think maybe a week or two, you'll answer a question having to do with what's a theory or technique that you've really gravitated towards. So what's the one that you've so far said, I really like this. And at the end of our semester, you'll do a vignette, kind of a case study response, and you'll practice being a career counselor. You will have to talk about what theories, techniques you would use in an actual career counseling relationship. Talk about the things that are most meaningful to you in your final response. You'll do a video, but you don't need to. Much like in everything you learn in the whole program, you're not going to be somebody that's going to, throughout your time working in this field, go, I love everything about everything. No, it's just not the reality. I think it's unrealistic to think that you're going to love everything. I do think it's important that you know about as much as you possibly can so that you can make these really educated decisions on what's most meaningful for you. Okay, so you're going to gravitate towards certain things. So for a lot of the work that I love to do, I borrow from true, I guess you could say, clinical psychology and narrative therapy. Okay, so I love this aspect, this idea of narrative therapy. I think a lot of times, and you'll look at this with, card sorts and different story aspects of career development. A lot of the work that I'm doing is I'm asking my clients when I'm in these relationships, these coaching, counseling relationships, is to ask them to tell me, in response to my questions, tell me stories. Okay, so they're going to then tell me stories of things they liked, they didn't like, and so forth. Narrative therapy can be very powerful. Some of you, I don't like narrative therapy. Some of you may love CBT. Some of you may look all sorts of other areas. So, but what you know in the back of your mind is all of this content, and you go, okay, so this is what I've tried and it didn't work. This is what I tried, this didn't work, this didn't work. Oh, I remember I took that one class, and I didn't really think anything of that one technique or that one theory, but I wonder if that would work with this client. And, when you know it, maybe it does, okay? So when you're thinking about your case study responses, right? So I can't tell you these are the things the 3, 2, 1 things that stood out, the questions, the applicable things that you have, because that's personal, right? So I'm just going to basically write, that's great. It's great questions. And a lot of times I'll respond to some of those questions in my video. In fact, the next couple of weeks I'll do that. But the case studies, I can't necessarily say, hey, you're wrong or you're right, because you're you and I'm me, and I may do things in fact, I will do things completely different compared to how you would do that. We might look at the same exact situation with the same exact client, with the same exact kind of factors playing into what's at hand, and we would deal with it completely different. And that's not to say that I'm right, you're wrong, or you're right, I'm wrong. It's that in our differences, how we do therapy, how we do counseling, we're going to handle how we work with our clients differently. And so what I'm looking for is, did you thoughtfully think through and articulate what it is that you would do in this specific situation? So you're not necessarily having a right or wrong answer. You're taking what you know, this informed information, so that you can then put into practice what you would do in this specific situation. I hope that makes sense. Okay. Last thing I'll mention is there's a great app for your phone. I know it's on iPhone, on iOS, and I'm fairly certain it's on Android, but it's a great Canvas app, so on your phone, that you can actually interact with the class. You can look at comments and all of that on your phone. So I would encourage you to search for that, download it, and then sign in and use that for your class. All right? So any questions, let me know. Email me, call me. Email is always best. But I hope you're having a great week, and I look forward to seeing you online the remainder of this week.